Green Noise is back.
We are, as human beings, genetically wired to be in nature and around nature.
Well, one of our methods of scouting is the Scout Law and Scout Promise.
You're really building sustainable people.
No one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they don't value.
Welcome back to Green Noise, a podcast by CapeNature. And my name is Dan Corder. I'm your host, and we are coming to you live from another CapeNature reserve that we love to do for all of these seasons of the Green Noise podcast. It's time for a special episode on scouting the next generation of nature warriors, where we're going to be talking about how to find, train, and engender love for nature in young people who are going to be the next great fighters for nature conservation, biodiversity, and ecotourism. And I've got just the people here, frankly, just the people here to speak about this exact topic. The first one is Nigel Forshaw from Scouts South Africa. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. And the second is Natanya Dreyer from CapeNature. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with the Scouts, a worldwide, decades to half a century or older long movement that is a huge part of many people's lives. But for anybody who's never done Scouts, some weird, mysterious thing that some friends do on certain days of the week. Nigel, do you want to tell us about your involvement in Scouts South Africa?
Well, right now, I was a troop scout at my old troop for many years. But as you get older, so you need to probably get out of working directly with Scouts. And so today I'm the editor of the Cape Western Scouter or the Western Cape Scouter in Cape Town. I'm also the trips planner for the Senior Scout Adventure. So once every 2 years, we run a big event in the Cederberg. And we have about between 350 and 500 scouts. I design the routes that they hike.
Oh, wow.
And we do the negotiation with CapeNature in the Cederberg. So that's one of my big jobs. Another job is I'm the chair of the National Awards Committee. So adults can get awards for merit awards for doing things over and above what they would normally be expected to do in the role that they hold. And I'm the chair of that. And I'm also a leader trainer, which means that I can run training courses for adults. And my two specialities that I've been involved in the last few years is what we call the Scout Group Leader training course. This is for older scouters, sort of 40 odd and perhaps up. And then also the Mountain Awareness course, which is an afternoon course that we run for armchair troop scouters that perhaps aren't that fit and don't get out there. So that's what I'm particularly involved in at the moment. I don't really work much with scouts, except there's one exception, and that is, in fact, next weekend I'm running the Conservation Badge course at our Haverquest Scout Adventure Centre, and we have a number of highly qualified people to assist with that. So that's my involvement today.
And when do you sleep exactly after that unbelievable list that you just gave us?
There is time to sleep, Dan.
When exactly with all of that? That's crazy. But I do actually genuinely want to know how you got involved in Scouts. Was it something that your school did? Because I know some people who've got involved in Scouts from very, very young ages, right through their teenage years and getting all the badges and going on all the adventures. How did it start for you?
Well, for me, it started with a friend. I was 8 years old at the time, 9 years old, and the friend was involved in a group in Cape Town, and it sounded like good fun. So off I went, and then one thing led to another, and still around.
And truly has been a massive part of your life, I guess.
Well, it has. My life's not dominated by it, but it certainly is a part of my life. Another part of my life, which people don't really know, is my interest in the fauna and flora, especially the flora.
Okay.
And that's why I went for a walk actually before we did this interview.
Oh, amazing. And tell me, Natanya, I promise we will get to you. But tell me about the core foundational ethos of honor and respect, or honor and duty of scouting, and how that kind of really, really good set of principles forms the foundation launch stone for all of the practical survival skills and nature preservation and conservation stuff that Scouts is, I guess, more famous for outside of scouting.
Well, one of our methods of scouting is the Scout Law and Scout Promise. So the Scout Law is 10 set of values that every scout needs to learn before he or she can get invested, that is, get the uniform. What I'm wearing now is our informal uniform. There is a founder's uniform, which Scouts wear. The Scout needs to learn all the 10 Scout laws. And for a cub who is a younger person, the law is a bit simpler. And for a meerkat who's even younger, between the ages of 5 and 7, it's even simpler than that.
See.
And then we have a Scout promise as well, where we talk about citizenship and character building and keeping the Scout law. So that's where we get our principles from.
Okay. And now, Natanya, tell me a little bit about the Cubs Club connection with CapeNature also.
Right, so Cubs Club is for learners ages 4 to 13, and we've got two parts of Cubs Club. We've got the individuals, which is anyone between that age can join up. They form part of the club, and then they get a quarterly newsletter in which they've got action projects that they need to fulfill.
Oh, cool.
So they need to go and do something good for the environment. We have a bunch of different themes. I think we've just finished off now with Save Our Seabirds, and then the next one is going to be our majestic mountains, which is quite appropriate given where we are sitting today. And then we've got our Cubs Club groups, which is for those people who want to bring a group to the table and do a couple of group projects and actionables for the environment, where they want to bring in children to learn a little bit about the environment, but then also do actions for the environment. We work on a head, hand, heart principle, if I can put it that way. So in the Cubs Club, we want to give them a little bit of knowledge. So the newsletters, a little bit of information, what they need to know about the topic. But then what we want them to do is actually the hands part. We want them to get involved. It doesn't help they just know about something. We really want them to actually get in there and do something. So whether it's something as simple as having a sustainable fish braai, which linked to our previous theme, or doing something like a cleanup, we want them to get involved. And then from that, we obviously go to the heart side of things. So we're hoping through giving them the knowledge, equipping them with that, giving them the actions, getting them really involved hands-on, that they're going to really start valuing nature and wanting to respect it.
And as far as I understand, CapeNature, through learning and awareness programs, has an enormous focus on the non-negotiable need for children to get into natural environments, to create that kind of relationship with the land that they're moving through and the flora and fauna that they're being inspired to care about.
I love going to a quotation by Sir David Attenborough, where he says, "No one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they don't value."
For sure.
So at the end of the day, we want people to come into our nature reserves. We want them to experience nature. If they don't experience nature, why would they find it valuable? They have no value in it. So by actually getting kids to come in and really connect with nature, we're hoping that at the end of the day, they're going to value it. And of course, when they value it, what they're going to do, exactly what we want, they're going to protect it.
That's amazing. So we're talking about inspiring and scouting the next generation of nature warriors. And I'd like to hear from both of you, starting with Nigel. What kind of, types of infrastructure are essential for children, even very young, your meerkats or your cubs, now the technical terms that I know, for children of all ages to safely and effectively enjoy scouting missions, being out in natural environments, and then maybe for you, Natanya, after that, CapeNature reserves specifically, but starting with Nigel.
We need a place for meerkats, cubs and scouts to meet that is safe. So every scout group will have what we call a scout hall or scout headquarters, and they meet there, and needs to be obviously a safe environment. And they also need equipment in scouting, pioneering poles, which may be 4, 5, 6 meters long for construction projects, pioneering construction projects. They need first aid equipment, compasses, maps, ropes, cooking equipment, poikies, Dutch ovens.
You're really building sustainable people and self-sufficient people.
Yeah, and we're making them responsible as well, because when you can use that equipment, they become more responsible and more independent and can take on leadership roles as well.
And as far as I understand, there's a huge emphasis in Scouts on leaving as little of a footprint remaining as possible after you, making sure you look after areas that you move through.
Well, absolutely. One of the things we do talk about is take only photographs and leave only footprints. We also talk about the no ethic, the no trace ethic. That's a bit longer. Certainly, take only photographs and leave no footprints. I think that has quite a high impact on the Scouts. And when we're out there, we always try and inculcate that value into the Scouts. And something as little as not sitting in the path because other people can't walk through easily. If you're sitting in the middle of the path and not taking zigzags, those are some of the things that the Scouts will learn whilst they're in their Scout halls and they're running their Scout programs, but also getting out there. We call it learning by doing.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. And Natanya, as far as creating CapeNature reserves that are perfect for children of all ages to fall in love with nature.
Of course, so maybe just going back to the safety aspect first. Of course, when children enter our nature reserves, we need to make sure that there's the infrastructure for them. Simple things like making sure our trails are maintained properly, the right signage. So that's all important. But I think what's also really, really important is when we facilitate these groups to make sure that the facilitator is aware of all the things that could potentially go wrong.
I see.
And that we do a risk assessment beforehand. So what we would do at CapeNature is we would do a risk assessment before a group would come in. And following that risk assessment, we would see what is it that we need to do. So it could be something as simple as walking up or down a really rigorous mountain, like where we're sitting now. If we know the group's going to do that, we know we need to tell them, put on closed shoes that don't slip. Bring your sun hat. Bring something warm. So it's simple things like that the facilitator needs to make sure that they do beforehand. But then also other measures that we've put in place, like when we take groups out, we always make sure that at least one person has a two-way radio with them. We also make sure that one person is a first aider, level 1 at least. So all those kinds of things need to be put in place. And then, of course, we have the indemnities and that type of safety as well.
You also have a dedicated group campsites, if I understand correctly.
We do. We have an incredible eco-venue. So again, going back to what Nigel was saying, having that dedicated space is really important. Firstly, the children are staying within that dedicated space, making it a bit safer for them, but also it's really equipped to deal with the type of things that they need to be doing, the activities, and so on. But at the same time, those eco-venues are also ensuring that our other guests elsewhere are not being disturbed by the loud children.
Exactly. No, that makes perfect sense. Nigel, I've been thinking a little bit about development of technology being so rapid. We're in the fastest technological revolution ever. And I'm absolutely sure that as it's affecting and being integrated into the work of conservationists, formal professional conservationists, it's also coming into the world of scouting using different kind of technologies. Once it was a compass, now it's still a compass, but you could also use geomapping or drones or the rest, right?
Well, that's exactly the case, yes. So a Springbok Scout that's the highest award a Scout can get, and that Scout needs to do all the planning on a 1 in 50,000 topographical map.
Wow.
So that's traditional. And, if your GPS fails or your cell phone fails, what then? So the Scouts do still learn the classical way of mapping and getting through the mountains. But of course, we do embrace technology. And Scouts that use GPSs and cell phones to plot their route, that's absolutely fine. But we do try and create an awareness that, what if that fails? You do need a backup, and that backup is a map, and more than one map. So we also use satellite trackers for our Scouts who hike in the Cederberg and Grootwinterhoek. Those are two big areas where Scouts hike. And we want them to be as safe as possible, and it's a bit expensive, but there's no cost to a life. So that's why we do that. We absolutely embrace technology, but just do point out some of the pitfalls, and we have workarounds to sort that out if they do fall into a pitfall and a digital device fails.
Totally. You don't have an over-reliance on something that can switch off, right? And then I also wanted to ask, because I think there's a distinction between people who love nature, who love camping, who loves going outside, and people who want to kind of create a natural born practice of conservation in the way that they engage in nature. I was thinking about how useful it is, I'm sure, to have Scouts who are capable of doing data collection, for example, or noticing the changing topography or the changing flora and fauna of an area. For particularly you, Nigel, how do you convert somebody with a deep and abiding love of nature and being within nature to somebody who will start not necessarily making it their professional career life, but building in practices to the way that they spend time time outdoors that are helpful to the outdoors?
Yeah, well, we get involved in a citizen science project called the City Nature Challenge, which is run out of California once every year. And the Scouts are heavily involved in that. We've been involved in that since 2019. Even during COVID, we still ran that program. And if a Scout records 10 observations, they get a badge. So a badge is always something that makes a meerkat cub or a Scout excited. They're mercenaries. They like to have badges on their uniform. So that is a way of trying to benefit the natural environment, benefit scientists who might wish to use the data. And maybe some of the data is not as good as we would like it to be, but that's not the point. The point is that you are creating an awareness around you, and maybe one of the days someday in the future, they'll become botanists and environmentalists and CapeNature folk. And those things, that development is probably not going to happen until they become an adult. It's only once they become an adult. But in the Scout program, they are given some of the basic raw requirements, like mapping and using the iNaturalist app on their phones. They're given that grounding, and hopefully they will carry on. Years and years ago, we were hiking in the Cederberg, and one of the Scouts who I was hiking with, they thought I was crazy. I was photographing things like Proteocrophila, which is a high-altitude Proteus species in the Cederberg, which is really rare and really exciting to see. And they kind of scoffed at this, but he turned into a botanist.
Wow.
Believe it or not. And so,
amazing.
that was quite exciting for me too. And then he became a journalist. But, yeah.
One way or another, that's funny. For those of you who don't know, iNaturalist is also very big in my family. It's a citizen science app where people can upload information from sightings to pictures like Nigel describes, and then ask communities to cross-reference, identify different kinds of species and work together to figure out what is going on in different places in the world, which is extremely, extremely cool. More used in my family for underwater creatures. Lots of free divers in my family, all of them on the iNaturalist app. Natanya, I want to ask you about the digital detox, about how terrible phones are, how terrible the internet is, how the algorithm rots us out inside and out, and that particularly kids who are getting devices almost before they can walk these days really need the ability to go, oh, the real world isn't where my thumbs are inside that screen. The real world is outside. Tell me from what you've seen about the crucial benefits that digital detoxes and getting out into the outdoors and nature without phones, without signal, without devices is unbelievably good for youth development.
So this is something I find incredibly fascinating. We are, as human beings, genetically wired to be in nature and around nature. We are not made to sit behind a desk. Our bodies want movement.
They demand it of us.
They demand it. Our bodies want sensory experiences, and then our bodies also want the calm. In the digital world, it's incredibly busy. There's not calm moments always. And then also, if you think about things like our sleep patterns, we need to actually sleep at night when it gets dark, not have artificial lights or screens that we're looking at. So just looking at that fact that we actually are genetically wired to be in nature. Once you take someone and you put them in nature, a whole bunch of things happen, because we unfortunately haven't caught up to the concrete world genetically. So genetically, as soon as we move into spaces like this, these amazing spaces, you start calming down. When a child calms down, they start concentrating a lot better and more. So that's definitely one change that can happen. They also are able to do things in the outdoors that they aren't able to do in a traditional classroom. If you think about it, in a traditional classroom, we have all these desks lined up and we can't really move around, and it doesn't encourage group interactions or social interactions. That starts happening when you bring a group outside, and the profound changes that happen within children, it's incredible. Once they start actually connecting and seeing value in things, the change that happens it's absolutely amazing. You can actually see the moment when they connect. We do a lot of activities where we get them to connect. We make them slow down. We make them really look at things. We make them listen to things. So we're engaging those senses that they genetically are supposed to be engaging. So then the right thing is happening within their bodies. It also encourages movement, if you think about it. So we're in a traditional class, we aren't able to move around so much. In an outdoor setting, we can do that. So all of that put together gets them to connect with these spaces. And again, going back to my Sir David Attenborough quote, when they connect, they're going to value it. And that's what we're after. We're after the behavior change. We want actions. We want them to do things when they leave these spaces.
Two things. One, for an ADHD autistic kid like me, classrooms are shocking. And I was in detention so often, not because I was malevolent, it was just mischief because I was so bored and unstimulated. I just needed another environment like going outside, and that's exactly what you're talking about. And on another one of the season 3 episodes, where we were talking about vertical therapy and climbing and rock climbing and the rest, there are lots and lots and lots of kids, particularly ADHD kids, who are taken out of insane, overburdening, overly hectic, overly competitive team sport environments like rugby, where everyone's supposed to be a Springbok at the age of 8, according to their dads. And go and do some rock climbing and have a totally different environment, which is much better. The other thing I wanted to say is what I find so beautiful when you put down your phone is that the world is the size that the world is supposed to be. So like humans, our brains are, this is quite a lot of world actually that I'm taking in right now. But when you've got a screen in front of you, your world is bottomless, endless, and literally an endless source of anxiety and misery. And it's just an overwhelm, right? Nothing about our brains, our genetic makeup, or our natural evolutionary development suggests that we should be able to be encountering all of that stuff. I love it when the world becomes the right size that it's supposed to be. Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things which is so obvious, but we don't think about it enough because we're so wrapped up in wherever our thumbs are. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so I'd love to hear from both of you about how people listening to or watching this can get involved formally in the Scouts and CapeNature, but also in other kinds of like large organized group programs. Like my parents go to the Cedarburg 4 times a year and they do trail clearing, for example. If there ones that come to your guys' minds beyond Scouts and CapeNature. Nigel?
Yeah, we have a program for Springbok Scouts. That's a final badge progression that a Scout can earn. And one of the things that the Scout can do is a community service project. So that can be pretty much anything that serves the community.
Oh, it's by their own design. Okay.
Yes, but that's by their own design. But if CapeNature says to us, like the people in Cedarburg say this, that, the other, and have you got someone that can do this, then we can pass the message around and see what comes out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And well, we've actually already spoken about our naturalists, but like citizen science monitoring, how does trail building work? I assume you can't just walk onto a CapeNature reserve and stomp very hard through that bush over there and make a trail.
Well, it's pretty hard work to make a trail.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And some of our Scouts have done nature trails and built paths, but we always need to bear in mind that they're under the age of 18 and their attention span is maybe not as long as we would like it to be. So I personally reckon when we're doing alien clearing, and we do alien clearing at our own Haverquest Scout Adventure Centre, 2 hours for a Scout is starting to get a bit much because it's hot and up in the mountains and they're thirsty and so there are challenges associated with alien clearing and path building, but we do it, yeah.
Okay. And Natanya, I know from years being familiar with and working with CapeNature that you guys have a lot of temporary volunteer projects, capacity building projects. And I imagine that the Scouts are just a thrilling resource for you guys because Scouts come along with navigation, first aid, survival skills, all super useful for the kinds of volunteer projects people can get involved in at CapeNature.
Absolutely. So very often also when we get large groups, those groups very often, we would always have concern as, is it too many people in the mountains, that kind of a thing. So to guard against that, we obviously have a couple of things in place. But one of the really nice things that we do is we engage with the group and say, look, maybe come in for free, come in at a discounted rate. And then instead of just walking and hiking, we'll give you a garbage bag and you're going to do a little bit of a trail cleanup. So it's really nice that these big groups can always come out, they can come and help us. And then, of course, there's Cubs Club as well, where if you get involved as a group, it might not be in the nature reserve all the time, but you are getting involved with action projects for the environment all the time.
And to end off, your partnership with the Western Cape Education Department and projects like Access Week. Tell us about that.
So Access Week is a week in which we allow people to enter our reserves for free, but we allow them to also participate in group programs. These group programs are exactly what we were talking about earlier, where we want to get people to connect. So we actually facilitate the program and try and do activities with our guests during Access Week that helps them really see things and really look at the perspective and really connect to nature. So that we use Access Week for that as well.
When's Access Week? Is it the same time every year?
It's normally during that week before or with Heritage Week in September.
I see, so mid-September.
Yes, mid-September.
Okay, that's fascinating. Well, I'm so inspired by both of you and all the work that you're doing to scout our next era of nature warriors. Thank you so much to both of you, Natanya and Nigel, for a wonderful special episode of the Green Noise podcast. And thank you so much to CapeNature for putting this together and making it possible from Hottentots Holland Nature Reserve. Thank you for watching.